Today, we're diving deep into the one skill that, more than anything else, really separates the good companies from the truly legendary long-term investments.
So let me ask you this. When you think about the absolute best companies out there, what's the one thing that truly sets them apart? If you had to put your money on a single quality that predicts long-term success, what would it be?
Is it incredible marketing? A super powerful brand? I mean, those things are definitely important, don't get me wrong, but they're not the fundamental engine of lasting value.
Okay, what about innovation then, right? Being the first to create something new has to be a massive advantage. We're getting a little bit warmer, but believe it or not, that's still not the heart of the matter. The real answer? It's capital allocation. It's the art and the science of deciding where every single dollar a company earns should go. And I promise you, once you start looking at the business world through this lens, you will never, ever see companies the same way again.
So what does this capital allocation thing actually look like? Well, in the real world, it really just boils down to 5 big choices every CEO has to make with the company's cash.
At its core, capital allocation is actually pretty simple. It's all about taking the cash a business makes and planting it in the best possible place to grow even more cash. You need to think of a CEO not just as a manager, but as the company's chief investor. Their main job is to get the highest possible return on every single dollar they have.
And to do that, they have 5 main tools in their toolkit. They can reinvest it back into the business, they can buy other companies, pay down debt, buy back their own stock, or just give the cash back to shareholders as a dividend. Let's break each of these down.
First up, and let's be honest, usually the absolute best choice is just plowing that cash right back into the business itself. Think about a software company hiring more coders or a great restaurant opening a new location. If a company has a clear path to grow with high returns, this is almost always the #1 way to create incredible long-term value. Next up, buying other companies. Now, this can be a huge shortcut to growth, for sure, but it is also a minefield. Seriously, business history is just littered with stories of CEOs doing ego-driven deals that absolutely destroyed value. So, for us as investors, we have to put on our detective hats and really dig into their track record here.
Third, we've got paying down debt. This is a classic it depends situation. If a company is drowning in high-interest risky debt, then yeah, paying it off is a total no-brainer. But what if their debt is super cheap and they have tons of fantastic projects to invest in? Well, then using cash to pay off that loan is a massive missed opportunity.
Okay, now for a pretty controversial one, share buybacks. These can be an amazing way to create value for shareholders, but the timing is everything. Here's the critical point. When a company buys its own shares for less than they are actually worth, what we call intrinsic value, everybody who still owns a share wins. But buying back stock at ridiculously high, peak prices, that's just like setting a pile of shareholder money on fire.
And last, number 5, dividends. Honestly, you can kind of think of this as the we've run out of great ideas option. It's management basically saying, hey, we've looked everywhere and we just can't find a way to reinvest this dollar for a high return inside our own business. So here, you take it back. Which is totally fine for mature, stable companies, but it's often a sign that the crazy hyper-growth days are probably over.
So, with these 5 different paths, how in the world does a great CEO choose? Well, it's not a gut feeling. It's a really disciplined way of thinking, and it's all guided by one simple golden rule.
This right here, this is the question that should be running on a loop in a great CEO's mind. It's the ultimate test of opportunity cost. A master allocator is constantly weighing these 5 options against each other, just relentlessly hunting for the one that's going to generate the most bang for the buck over the long term.
So what does one of these masters actually look like? How do you spot one in the wild? Well, there are a few key traits you really want to look for. And what's so fascinating is that these traits are less about being a spreadsheet genius and more about temperament. A master allocator is rational, not emotional. They have the discipline to say no and walk away from a bad deal, even if Wall Street is screaming for growth. And they're honest enough to admit their mistakes quickly. It's these behaviors that lead to that golden metric, a high and steady return on invested capital.
And you can see these exact traits in the legends. I'm talking about people like Warren Buffett at Berkshire Hathaway, Mark Leonard at Constellation Software, or Nick Howley at Transdigm. They built their massive empires not on a single product, but on decades of making smart, rational capital allocation decisions one after another.
But of course, for every master allocator, there are dozens and dozens of, well, not so great ones. So now let's flip the coin and look at the red flags, the warning signs that a management team might actually be destroying value instead of creating it.
And I mean, the contrast is just night and day. A poor allocator chases growth at any price, buys back stock when the price is at an all-time high, and gets sucked into these huge ego-driven acquisitions that make absolutely no financial sense. Oh, and one of the biggest, brightest red flags you can ever see? A company that borrows money just to pay its dividend. That is a huge sign of financial trouble ahead.
Okay, so let's tie this all together. Why is understanding all this stuff not just some boring academic exercise, but a really powerful practical edge for you as an investor?
It's because when you buy a stock, you're doing so much more than just buying a ticker symbol and some numbers on a screen. You are effectively hiring that CEO and their management team to be the guardians of your capital. You're making a bet on their judgment, trusting them to make smart decisions with your money for years and years to come.
Here's a really powerful way to think about it. Every single dollar of profit a company makes is a soldier. The CEO, they're the general. And your job, as an investor, is to find the best generals, the ones who know how to send their army of soldiers out to conquer the most valuable territory.
So the next time you're looking at a company, don't just stop at the revenue numbers or the profit margins. Go one level deeper. Ask yourself this one crucial question, because the answer, that's where real sustainable long-term wealth is actually built.